From Keene in the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Daryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Wednesday, February 24th, 2016. Silver is trading at $15.38 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,241 per ounce. And according to BitcoinAverage.com, the average price of Bitcoin is $424. Antiwar.com reports, speaking to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on Tuesday, Secretary of State John Kerry suggested the latest push for a ceasefire in Syria could amount to the last chance for one, and suggested that the U.S. would see a partition of the country as Plan B. Kerry did not offer any details on how this would work, of course, but the fact that the U.S. is mentioning partition at all is a huge step, as the U.S. has fiercely resisted similar considerations in neighboring Iraq, which itself is facing a near-identical war with many of the same combatants. Kerry said if the ceasefire did not get into place soon, it would be too late to allow Syria to remain whole, and that the partition of the country could form an eventual solution to the civil war, which has raged for the past 5 years. Though a de facto partition has existed in Syria for months now, with fighting along the margins, it's unfathomable that the international community could recognize it as a de jure separation so long as the Islamic State controls around half of the country, and Al-Qaeda's Nusra Front has its own contiguous statelet in the north. Though partition is meant to suggest a split on government-rebel lines, the reality is the rebels don't hold enough territory to be a country, and the partition would amount to a recognition of the caliphate of the Islamic State as a state of its own. If you're fed up with the government running every aspect of your life, but you're not listening to the Lava Flow podcast yet, what's wrong with you? Go right now to thelavaflow.com/listen. The Lava Flow podcast, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Subscribe today using any podcatcher at thelavaflow.com/listen, or just go back to sucking up to the government. The Lava Flow podcast, striking the root every episode. Reuters reports several tornadoes tore through Louisiana and Mississippi on Tuesday, killing at least 3 people and injuring more than 30 others as the storms destroyed homes and businesses and toppled a water tower, according to forecasters and emergency officials. Sheriff Willie Martin Jr. of St. James Parish told several local media outlets at least 2 people were killed and numerous others injured when an apparent tornado struck the Sugar Hill RV Park in the Louisiana community of Convent on the Mississippi River, about 60 miles west of New Orleans. The National Weather Service reported 1 fatality near the Mississippi town of Henleyfield, where it said a mobile home was destroyed. Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant declared a state of emergency for areas expected to be affected by the storm. School and government officials canceled classes or closed early in Louisiana and Mississippi as severe weather warnings lined up from Louisiana to Florida and Georgia. The Weather Service said Alabama could see tornadoes and hail on Wednesday. For nearly 40 years, Roberts & Roberts Brokerage has been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver. They also take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760 or visit online at rrbi.co. Antiwar.com reports after pledging to close the detention center at Guantanamo Bay in the wake of his inauguration, President Obama is now in his final year in office, pushing a new plan aimed at a compromise with Congress by closing the site but keeping scores of detainees at some other unknown black site prison. The proposal is the latest in a string of half-hearted efforts to fulfill a promise to close the site, and unsurprisingly was met with the same resistance from Congress as usual, with a series of new bills presented aiming to make it even harder to close the facility. The usual congressional hawks are railing about the effort as dangerous and treating it as though it would actually release detainees, or perhaps as shockingly provide them with access to an actual judicial system. The White House is trying to ensure them that this is not the case and that some prison of some sort inside the U.S. would simply become the new Gitmo and house those detainees in the same manner as they presently are housed. This has human rights groups wondering what the point is. Amnesty International in particular is critical of the effort, saying shifting the program to the mainland won't solve anything and that the problem is holding them without charges, not that they are held in Cuba. This has been FPP Radio News, online at fppradio.com.